Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Potential rumour as to when the Los Angeles Thieves announcement is going to be going live. Is it going to be the team that we expect it to be, especially given the suggestions as to which roster is going to be most competitive with the theoretical top 4, just like the New York Subliners were an underrated force going into last season. And also regarding the OpTic curse, if it's not Seattle Surge that win the World Championship next year, then surely it's got to be wherever Ghosty ends up. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to mention this. So the CDL have announced a official tournament that they're doing over 5 events over the next couple of weeks. The first one begins in just a few days on August the 16th, and they announce it as CDL Pros versus Warzone Pros, or Warzone Creators or whatever. So it sounds like it's going to be kind of like what we did in Zuma setup and everything right at the start of the Vanguard season, when we'd have 1v1s between pros and Warzone guys. And okay, look, it wasn't really Hardpoint because that would favour the pros. It wasn't Warzone because that would presumably favour the Warzone guys. It was just like 1v1s and stuff, right? And this whole CDL versus Warzone thing was a big storyline at the time. So the CDL are capitalizing on this and setting up this set of tournaments, but it's not quite CDL Pros versus Warzone Pros in the same way you might think. It's kind of like mixed teams, but it's still going to be interesting, I think, nonetheless. So there's 5 events, 150k in prizing across these 5 dates. So the 16th, the 18th, 23rd, 25th, and then the 1st of September. So the first 4 events, there's 20k on the line, and then the finale is going to have 70k for an interesting format that I'm not fully sure exactly what it's going to be yet. Repulse explained it on stream yesterday, that the first tourney is like an S&D tourney, and I think it's either going to be 2v2 or it's 4 versus 4, and basically the idea is that your team is 2 COD pros or CDL pros and then 2 like Warzone creators. So you have mixed teams of CDL pros and Warzone creators, and then they play against other mixed teams. So it's not quite like CDL versus Warzone in the way that we might like it to be, but still, I think they're going for the mixed team approach, and it's still going to be interesting to see. I do wonder if some pros would be like, nah, I can't be bothered with this type thing. But look, there's a decent amount of money on the line. The pros like their money, and especially with salaries going down, so I'm sure they'll get involved here. But some are away on holiday and stuff like this, so it's not exactly going to be easy or on vacation, right? So yeah, Repulse kind of explained it and pretty much described how the first tourney is like S&D, then the next weekend is on Warzone, right? And then they go back to S&D, back to Warzone, and then the final, like the finale, is kind of a mix of both somehow, depending on, I'm guessing, seeding from the earlier rounds. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm glad that they're putting something together at least to keep us entertained over the next couple of weeks. Now, we've got to talk about this again from Clayster. So yesterday we saw this tweet, finally made it to Cali, and not for what you will assume. So the obvious assumption would be, oh, Clayster, here we go, to Los Angeles Guerrillas, he's signing a contract and all this stuff. But he actually puts this out on Twitter yesterday. Quick trip, stream is back tomorrow. So, and then he puts this image, and I'm like, all right, here we go, baby. It's time again, especially off-season time, to go full Geo Rainbolt detective on this. And this is a pretty easy one. You guys might have given this a go already, to be fair, to try and figure out where Clayster is in Cali. But this is the image. So it's pretty distinct, to be fair. There's a few distinct features here, like, for example, this like sign in the crossroads or whatever, but the it looks beautiful actually. But the place that I wanted to just zoom in on is this in the bottom left. Very like obvious clue, the Foster City Public Library and Community Center. If you go and find this on the Google Maps, you'll find it's right here, so just south of San Francisco. And if we zoom in, we'll find the Foster City Community Center, this like crossroads. And then if we look closely on the building on the other side, you'll find this is the HQ, or one of the facilities for Sledgehammer Games, so the developers of the upcoming Modern Warfare 3 title. Now, I don't know if any other pros were out there with Clay in Cali, because sometimes, I think last season we saw pictures of like Zero and Asim and these guys going out to basically test the game. So I'm guessing that's what Clay's done over the last couple of days, is done some play testing on the new title. And hopefully we'll get some feedback to it. The pros often will say, and just to confirm that this is the spot, if I just chuck the man down like here or something, we can see that, yeah, Foster City Public Library Community Center. We've got this sign on the other side of the road. You guys can match this all up. So somewhere in here is the Sledgehammer Games offices, I'm guessing, here in California. And that's where Clay and maybe others as well were testing out the game. We don't really know. I'm not sure I'd seen too much of other players flying out there, but it does usually happen every year. The frustrating thing is that that by the time the players test these games, we're in what, August now, and okay, the game does come out in like 3 months pretty much to the day, so there's some time for them to change the game. But ideally, and this is the whole point of like XDefiant and what they're trying to do over there with X & Co, is that they try to design that game, and maybe when XDefiant does finally launch, which has definitely been delayed, and I know Mark Rubin's been saying, look, we're trying, but we're frustrated it's getting delayed, but right now it kind of just is what it is, and XDefiant will arrive at some point. I think they said it's going to be this summer, right? So they're kind of running out of time, to be fair, but it will be here eventually, and maybe that game will not last the test of time, we don't really know, but even if it doesn't, the point was to ensure that some elements of competitive gameplay were implemented from the very start in the early part of the process, whereas when the pros start to playtest and give their feedback, the game is basically done, and they can't really, you know, have any weight on how the game's going to be played. They can give thoughts on maps and spawns and weapon balancing and things like this, and I do wonder how similar this game is to the game that they've just played for an entire year. So we'll see if Clay, when he does turn the stream on again, gives any like hints as to that, because I'm pretty sure that's what he was up to the last couple of days, is doing a bit of play testing, which is good to see that it's actually happening. But you know, I wonder what the feedback will be, because often the pros, as soon as they play the game, are very positive about it, and then over time they think, well, actually, you know, when the game launches, there's a bit of a honeymoon phase, and then they start not liking the game as much anymore. Speaking of Clayson, though, there is Team Aches for the Black Ops 2 Throwback Tournament, the off-season number 2. There's some great teams being formed here, and this is one of them, Aches, Clay, Krim, and John running it back again, so that's going to be a really exciting one. A large part, of course, of that former Complexity team from way back in the day. Speaking of Krim, I thought this is kind of crazy as well. The only Quad Pro Crim6 to place top 6 at a LAN in 3 different decades. Did it in the 2000s, did it 53 times in the 2010s, and then 8 times in 2020. Top 6 at 80% of his career LAN tourneys, which is you know, pretty impressive, because there were most pre-CDL events 32 plus teams at a lot of them. So, okay, he was on dominant teams, maybe not a massive surprise, but he was also part of those dominant teams, so got to give him a fair bit of credit. Now, this is the theoretical LA Thieves roster we believe is going to be the case, and we thought this was happening, and then we thought, alright, maybe it won't happen, because Zuma was hearing there were changes, and the changes he was supposedly hearing was that aBeZy was coming in for, he didn't say for Cammy, but in my mind that would have made a little bit more sense possibly, but still, this is the roster of 4. We haven't heard any updates on this from Jake Hale, so we can relatively well assume that this is going to be the team that's going to be formed next season. Now, I know that many people want to know, and it's a good question, what's the team outside of Toronto, OpTic, FaZe, New York? That's your theoretical best 4. Which other team is going to be able to compete? Because usually every year there's some team that's unexpected that turns out to be pretty good. Not exactly out of nowhere, but you know, they're much better than expected. A team in like the midfield pack that's all of a sudden making finals and going to win events. I mean, it's happened most seasons. For example, year 1 of the CDL MWIII, I guess Florida, in a way, like they were way better than people thought they'd be. I suppose Toronto in the Cold War season. I don't think going into Cold War people thought Toronto would be as good as they turned out to be in that title. Then in Vanguard, I guess you've got to say Surge in some respects, like the fact that they won an event and they're up there. There might be other candidates. And then most recently it's been the Subliners, right? Now, I think with New York, going into last season, most people looked to them as like the 7th, 8th best team, 6th best team, something in that ballpark. And when you look back on their roster, you think, well, I can understand why there was a lot of skepticism Priestahh, Skyz, Kismet, HyDra, but they had the pieces, right? Like, it was obvious that HyDra was a very good player, and HyDra and Kismet had just won, you know, an event the previous season and made a finals and made that crazy run to qualify for champs with Crim6 and PaulX in the previous year. So maybe it wasn't a massive surprise that they turned out to be good. It's just the roster composition seems a bit questionable, but they have the pieces. And looking back at these rosters that have succeeded, they've always had great players that the supporting cast is a little bit questionable. So, you know, I think that's the way you've got to look at these other teams, because you look at a Boston, you look at a Thieves, you look at a Surge or a Minnesota, something like that. Which of those teams is going to be able to have the highest upsides? Probably the team that has players with actually an awful lot of talent, but it's just a little bit of a question whether they're going to be able to get the most out of that. And maybe Thieves can be a team like that, to be fair. And you've also got to consider the OpTic Texas curse question, or just the OpTic curse question in general, with regard to Ghosty, because Rambo, Illy, Hook, all those guys that were dropped or released used to OpTic over the last season are going to surge, we think. So the only other man in that boat is Ghosty, and we know that generally people that are released or leave OpTic in some form tend to do rather well in the upcoming season. It's happened most years. Maybe this is going to be the year to break the curse. But if Seattle Surge break the curse by not winning anything, and I, to be honest, don't expect Seattle Surge to win anything as it stands, then maybe it all falls on Ghosty. And I think the Thieves can be a really exciting team. When is it going to get confirmed, though, if at all? Because Ghosty has been talking about this type of stuff, and for Ghosty as well, it's going to be a really exciting prospect, because I don't know if he's going to feel hard done by the way that he was treated at the end of his OpTic stint. I don't, like, if you're Hook, I think you expect it to be gone, probably, especially after the final couple of events. I think the Hook probably realised that he has to really kill it in the last couple of events and probably win at least one, if not both of those major 5-event champs for Hook to stay around, because he knew that Pred and Envoy and these other players were in conversation, and they clearly wanted Pred, so it's not a surprise. In Ghosty's case, does he feel like, did he feel like going into champs that if he does well, he'll still remain in his spot? I think after champs, he probably could have theorized that they might make a move here and try and upgrade. But I'm sure that Ghosty will want to prove that OpTic made the incorrect decision on this one. So, 100 Thieves AA, Austin Allison here says, in reply to Shah, so, LA Thieves, give us one more week, he says. So, pretty much saying that 1 week from now, maybe 6 days from now, we're going to get the announcement officially, and I'm pretty sure that all the contracts are signed. We don't have, like, the contract signing gif or whatever from any of these players yet, but I'm pretty sure the deals are done, and at least the players they wanted done. Maybe there's some things they're working out on the contractual side, because money is tighter than it has been previously. So then Thieves Talk says, so we may be getting a roster reveal next week, and then AA Anderson again says, maybe 2 weeks, right? I don't know yet. So saying that it's not exactly so clear yet, even from the Thieves side, exactly what their plan is going to be, but yeah, pretty much saying that it's done and the announcement is coming soon. It's only a matter of time until the announcement actually arrives. And when it does, I think there's part of me that thinks that Thieves actually could be the team with the highest upside out of those other rosters. I think that Boston can be very good, but I expect them to take a little bit longer to really get into the groove. Part of me thinks that this Thieves team could come out the gate swinging. I'm still a little bit unsure on this squad, and I don't expect them to work in the medium term, but I think they could put up more of a fight than some were expecting. This I also thought was interesting here from Kennedy, who put together her theoretical, at least, Los Angeles Guerrillas roster. I mentioned this team the other day. There's literally no rumors about anyone to Guerrillas, apart from what Ben said on stream like several weeks ago, where he said that Clay's going to go to LAG. Apart from that, we just don't know, and it's just been people putting the pieces together of, well, Clay and Attach might team up again, and well, who else have you got on the SMG market but Nero and Standy? And Standy and Clay team last year, they had decent success, I suppose. They might want to run it back. This is a pretty good team, I think, on paper. And maybe this could be a team with more upside than some of the other ones. Just to close out, they wanted to mention this for you guys, this CDL grid that they do. So you've got to pick players that fit in each of these spots. So clearly LA Thieves and OpTic. It's going to be Kenny right now. That's officially confirmed. I'm sure there's like more than one you could put into these boxes. Envoy is going to be in this one with Toronto. Slasher in this one with Boston. Then you've got, Boston and Vegas. That's got to be TJ Halley. Toronto and Legion, I suppose. Standy, right, fits the bill on that. OpTic and I'm guessing Prolute is this one probably. And then for challenges, you've got the likes of Ghosty, you've got the likes of Insight or Hixie, and then like Kremp, Snoopy, all of these players can fill in the bottom part of the grid. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
That has nothing to do with that. You
There's
fucking
no
moron. Maybe if you graduated high school, you'll understand how things work. But you're just a fat
no one
fuck who
taking
sucks
your
at
team,
video
brother.
games.
You're fucking awful. You're a failure. You're admitting
Yeah,
you're
I'm
a failure.
a failure. I have 2 paid off houses at 23 while you live with your parents and you suck at video games. You suck at video games.
Imagine you do every
You
day.
sat next to
You
Scump,
quit
Dashy, and
on
Shotzzy
yourself.
0.7. You are
You
shit.
quit on yourself. You quit on
You are
yourself.
shit,
I don't care. Imagine you quitting on yourself. Imagine you quitting on yourself.
Bro, get aside,
You waking up every day and I quit on myself. That's what you have to say.
Dude, you guys are AIDS, bro. Shut the fuck up,
You
bro.
guys are on
Shut the
bro.
fuck up,
I
bro.
mean, it's just the truth. He wakes up every day and admits himself. I quit on myself. I'm a quitter.
Yo, like, we
Yeah,
need
man.
that kind of stuff.
Can't we just
Are we
play,
playing,
bro?
bro? What the fuck's happening?
I'm not
I don't
playing.
know.
Bro, let's play, bro.
I'm not
I think
playing
it's
100 points, bro. What? I just
I'm
lost
going to
900.
I'm gonna go into the lock jet.
Yeah, like, jeez, like, I don't